Hello and welcome to Four Wheels Goods. Tonight we're devoting the whole programme to the world's biggest gathering of motor manufacturers. As workers at Ford in Halewood are learning to their cost, manufacturing cars is a global business in which production can be switched from country to country, continent to continent. Does Britain have a future in that business? Can our industry compete with the tiger economies and the American giants? Big questions. And there's no better place to find out than the home of the international car industry, Motown itself, Detroit in Michigan.
The last few years have seen the start of an American invasion of the European car market. Names like Cherokee, Jeep, Probe and Neon are now a familiar sight on British roads. So to find out what we can expect across the Atlantic next, here on Four Wheels Good we're kicking the new year off to a grand start with a visit to Motor City itself, Detroit, to experience firsthand the razzmatazz of the North American International Auto Show. From its humble beginnings with just 17 exhibitors showing their vehicles in a beer garden in 1907, the Detroit Auto Show has run every year since. The show has long since outgrown the beer garden and is now classed as a truly international show, filling one of the world's largest single-floor showrooms. This year it's host to over 40 manufacturers, who between them will show more than 700 cars and trucks. The world's eyes will see 30 new production vehicles and an amazing 13 concept vehicles. And if the American passion for showmanship is anything to go by, it promises to be quite a spectacular event. And who had they sent to look after me on my first visit to Motor City? Well, the true international freeloader himself, our own Mike Rutherford.
I turned up at the Detroit Motor Show. I didn't have a press pass, but I managed to blag my way in. I haven't got a tie for any of the events. I've only got jeans. I haven't got a suit. But despite all that, and despite this wonky accent of mine, I'm going to go around the Detroit Motor Show and I'm going to try and do what no other journalist in the world has managed to do at the Detroit Motor Show, and that's to speak to the three big bosses here. There's the boss of Chrysler, Bob Lutz, probably the most famous guy in the car industry. There's the boss of Ford, Alex Trotman, the chairman of the Ford Motor Corporation. And then we've got the man, Jack Smith, the chairman, chief executive, president, you name it, he's got that title. He's the boss of General Motors, the world's biggest company. Not the world's biggest car company, the world's biggest company, period. These guys earn millions and millions of pounds a year. They run corporations that gross thousands and thousands of million pounds a year. We're in the billion-dollar business here, and I'm going to go and talk to these blokes. Let's see how I get on.
Of course, one of the most exciting aspects of any international motor show is taking a glimpse at what we might all be driving in the future. And Detroit has its fair share of concepts. There are 13 in total. And this is Volkswagen's latest concept, unveiled yesterday, first time the world set eyes on it. This really stunning looking coupe known as the CJ. Now VW aren't saying too much yet whether or not it'll go into production. One thing's for sure, that they certainly do need a coupe in their range. But I wouldn't mind betting that if you take a close look at this front end, you might very well see it again on the Mark IV Golf. Coming from the company's Californian design studios, the concept Coupe CJ has obviously taken many of its influences from the new Passat. The sleek flowing lines and styling definitely have the same feel as the Passat, although the vehicle shares the same platform as the Golf. Do you think there might also be a hint of Concept 1, the new Beetle, in there? Because I certainly do. It looks great, but as a concept vehicle, well, VW would better hurry up and make it, because it's very much a vehicle for now and not 3 years' time. Chrysler are one company that have quite a reputation for producing amazing muscle cars. You've seen the Viper GTS that I fell in love with recently, and you saw the Plymouth Prowler revealed for the first time to British eyes at the NEC last year. Well, how do you top those two? That was the challenge Chrysler set their design team back in February of last year, and in less than 12 months they've done it. They've just unleashed their latest snake, this thing, the Copperhead.
Well, the name was easy. I mean, you know, as we look at snake names, in fact, one of the early names for the engine on the Viper was a Copperhead, but we never actually used it in production. We took a look at cars that were pretty significant to myself. When I was going to college in the 60s, the Austin Healey 3000, the Jaguar XKs that were the 120s or 140s or the E-types were really great cars. I mean, they were a middle market car. They were more car than I could afford. I was driving Triumph TR3s and so on back in that time. So they were kind of an aspiration vehicle for me, and they just had wonderful proportions, and they had just beautiful surfaces. So we said, well, you know, there's something in that, and we've got a car in the Prowler that's got really unusual proportions. You know, the front wheel is way far forward, and it's kind of a mid-front engine look with the engine actually placed aft of the front wheels. Why don't we just see if we can do a sports car version of that? So they gave us this compelling proportion that you see on the Copperhead. And then we took advantage of that by being able to sculpt the body side in a really intriguing manner, and mixing some of the details like the scoops and the louvers on the hood. And
there's an amazing attention to detail on it, isn't there, really?
Oh, yeah. And the detail that goes beyond that, you know, like the fender almost feels like it's grabbing onto the front wheel and just kind of holding on for dear life as the chassis accelerates. And then we kind of had some fun with it, with the snakeskin interior and the snakeskin tread on the tires and so on.
That's amazing, the tread.
Yeah,
I see that.
That looks great, doesn't it?
Yeah. Chrysler may produce the sexiest looking dream cars around, but of course they realise that car buyers have to start somewhere. And with that in mind, they've produced another concept, the Pronto.
Pronto is a really interesting car because it takes a look at the entry-level car. And it says that historically what we've tried to do is to just take all the cost out. You take whatever is your cheapest car, and then you just look at everything and say, is there some way of reducing the cost even further? And in the end, all you have is a car that looks dead cheap. I mean, it doesn't have any attraction. There's nothing that makes you want to buy it. So we took a little different approach here, and we said, well, maybe we can come up with a different way of doing the bumpers, and we'll save some money with the bumpers and buy some great headlamps. In the front, do the same thing with the bumpers in the back, buy a great hatch gate and taillight system. And then probably the one thing that's the most striking thing about it is we took a look at the way we built the body. And the idea here is that it would be a structural plastic body, mold and color, like you have in a lot of plastic seats that you see in stadiums and so on. This gets you a couple of things. It means that when you scratch the vehicle, the color underneath is the same as the color on top. But there is a compromise. It says that it can't be shiny, because if it's shiny, then you see all the backside of the mold and the reinforcements and so on. So it's a matte finish, but maybe that's not bad. Maybe we shouldn't just assume that everybody wants shiny cars. And the idea was, well, we do that and we can save enough money to pay for the roof that's a full fabric slide back roof, 18-inch wheels and tires, very flexible interior seating system. In the end, you've got a different recipe.
Yep, you heard it right. Chrysler's car of the future will be made of moulded plastic. I just wish it had been around when I was learning to drive. It would have saved an awful lot of rows with my dad. If there's one name that really springs to mind when you think of off-road vehicles, it's got to be this, Jeep, the Jeep Wrangler. It's a design classic that's been around for decades. And if it works this well, you might say, why try and do something new? Well, manufacturers really have to look ahead, and that's what Chrysler have done when they set themselves the challenge of redesigning the Jeep for the next millennium. And believe me, that wasn't an easy task. In America, there was outcry amongst Jeep enthusiasts when Chrysler changed the shape of the headlamps from round to square.
Whenever you're trying to redesign something that has been such an icon, to use the name that we called the car as the Jeep has, the Wrangler has, you do it with fear and trepidation. You don't want to alienate this vast following that you have. But if you look back in history to when the Jeep was first invented, it was invented as a single-purpose vehicle, military vehicle, and it did a great job. And it's kind of evolved over time, and at some point in time, it's going to have to be reinvented. And so that's what we tried to do with the Icon, was to reinvent that Jeep, taking a look at, okay, what does the Jeep do? How is it supposed to perform? How is it supposed to act? What image does it really convey? And can't we do that and keep all of the character of the original Jeep and yet do it brand new?
Where did the inspirations for the design come from for the Icon?
Well, certainly the Jeep that we're replacing is a major inspiration. We didn't want to lose any of the character of the original Jeep, but I guess if there was something on the outside that inspired it, would be mountain bikes. I mean, mountain bikes have got this wonderful look of purpose-built industrial design quality, great features, all the mechanics are shown, and we wanted to convey that and all the details that we found there on the icon.
By far the most straightforward of Chrysler's concepts, giving us a clue to the company's direction, has to be the Dakar, a 5-door hardtop version of the Jeep Wrangler. It's aimed at the serious outdoor enthusiast and comes complete, amongst other things, with night vision goggles, binoculars and even a built-in folding shovel. One question though, what about the girls and the gazelles? Where do they fit into the package? I'm standing in front of the car with the most difficult name to pronounce at the Detroit Motor Show, Chrysler's dual cowl Phaeton. I've managed to get it right that time. And there's no guessing at all where the inspiration for this classic came from. Those elegant lines are so reminiscent of the convertibles of the 30s, 40s and 50s. Now, one feature on it is this amazing hardtop roof, which slides so neatly out of the back. The attention to detail on this car is fantastic. It has dual windscreens, has a powerful V12 engine, and it even has a complete set of controls in the back for the passengers so they can check their temperature, control their own radio, and even see how fast they're going.
Convertibles are all 2-doors. And so the thought behind this is, well, why wouldn't we do a 4-door convertible? I mean, we have got a great 2-door convertible in Sebring, but you get into the back seat by having to throw the front seat forward and so on. So the entry is compromised. This car gives you the space to be able to get into the back seat easily through a separate set of doors, put some structure back in the car with a second cowl, uses that to house a dropping windshield, a second windshield, and it's just a really interesting approach to convertibles. Will we ever do it? I don't know, but if the sedan market isn't any indicator, I think there's a market for a 4-door convertible.
I think you should provide a chauffeur with it if you ever do produce that vehicle, because I could just imagine sitting in the back and being driven along the seat front of it, definitely.
So, James, you're going a little fast there.
The glass of champagne in one hand, of course.
Yes.
Which out of all these vehicles do you think is most likely to see the production line first?
Well, that's an interesting question. They're all producible. I mean, if our board of directors or chairman came to us and said they wanted us to do any one of the 5, they're all in some form or another producible. Some are more easily produced and would take a smaller team or have a clearer path. Dakar certainly has a clearer path because it's such an easily understood derivation of a Wrangler. The Icon requires you to say you want to redo the Wrangler. A Phaeton would require a significant amount of ER&D to get the structure right, and you've got to figure out where you're going to build it. In any of these cases, you've got a really fairly complicated decision tree of trying to understand where it's going to be built, what's being built there now, what's the investment involved, what's the manpower involved, what's the business decision, what brand is it going to go to. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to put together that make good business sense, that in the end make you want to say, yeah, that's something I really want to produce and makes sense for the company.
I suppose a good test is showing the vehicles here and seeing the public reaction really as well.
Absolutely, that's the first test. I mean, it was the public reaction to Viper that got us to the point where we wanted to produce Viper, and Prowler, the same thing.
Question for you though, which one would you most like to see on the production line? Which is, I mean, you must have favourites.
You know, that's like saying, which of your children do you like the best? I mean, you can't
give me that
answer. I have to.
It's on the fence on this one.
Honestly, I really am. I really am, because I mean, I've got a love affair really with all of them. I really do. You know, I was intimately involved with the Fiat and the Copperhead and the Pronto. So they're all, to one extent or another, my kids.
Oh, well, you just have to make them all then, I think.
That'd be good. That'd be great. Let's do that.
Ginny there talking to Neil Walling, Chrysler Corporation's design director, a man obviously passionate about his cars. Well, Chrysler may be the smallest of Motown's big 3 car companies, but at the Detroit Auto Show they certainly produce some extremely creative concepts. Well, we'll be back after the break to see how Mike Rutherford is getting on with his challenge to interview the bosses of the big 3 car companies. We'll see you soon. Hi and welcome back to 4 Wheels Good. This week and next we'll be bringing you exclusive features and interviews from the 1997 North American International Auto Show at Detroit. Well, we were invited to all the new car unveilings, most of which were a far more elaborate spectacle than someone merely whisking a dust sheet off a new model. The elaborate theatrical extravaganzas at motor shows like this are often criticised by motoring journalists who, well, to be honest, just want to see the new car and be handed a comprehensive press pack. But maybe a little more razzmatazz was in order for the relaunch of a true American dream, the legendary Chevrolet Corvette.
It's my 40th birthday this year and I promised myself a little present, and that's a 1957 Corvette, the classic little red Corvette, born the same year as me. But there's an alternative to that, and that's the 1997 Corvette, the car we see before us now. It's just been launched at the Detroit Motor Show. It's the first Corvette for, what, 10, 12, 13 years, and it's going on sale in the States for something like £20,000. It will be on sale in Britain for more like £35,000. The difference between this car and all the other Corvettes that you've seen is that this one is going to go on sale in Britain. It's going to be available in the UK along with other American muscle cars like the Dodge Viper. And although for me it's got too much influence from Japanese cars like the Honda NSX and the Mazda RX-7, they insist that this car is a real Corvette, will go down in history as one of the great Corvettes. And to be fair to them, you've got to look beneath the skin, because it's not what you see on the outside with this car, it's what you see under the skin, or not what you see, or what you use under the skin. Hell of a lot of features under the metal here that make this car very, very special indeed.
And special is a gross understatement to describe just how the Corvette was actually launched to the world's press in Detroit. If any car can be called an American legend, it's the Corvette. The great American dream shaped out of metal in the image of passion and desire. Corvette for decades has been an icon, a fixture on the cultural landscape of America. Corvette is one of the strongest brand names in the world, with its name licensed on boats, on vacuum cleaners, mailboxes, and even guitars. Corvette even has 2 huge museums in its honour and has more car clubs in America than any other car in history. Since its debut in 1953, over 1 million Corvettes have been sold. And a recent survey has revealed it evokes more pride than any other American car. There have been 4 generations up to now of Corvettes. The 1953, the 63, the 68, and the 84. But now it's time for the big gamble. How would GM evolve the car to maintain the appeal of the Corvette? Well, let's take a look at the extravagant stage show, which included live video links to Los Angeles, where the new Corvette was to be unveiled simultaneously.
Let's check in with Los Angeles, make sure we're hooked up there. Mark and Brian, who are the morning show hosts for KLOS Radio. Guys, how are we doing out there?
Hey, we're doing great, John. One question. Did that rappelling down the line there last year, did that affect your voice any at all,
No,
sir?
I've always talked with this somewhat high voice, no problem. Brian, I understand you're a Corvette owner, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I have an 89. And a funny thing about those, it's a target top, and you know you have to lock the target top down before you take off.
You don't always do that, huh?
I've been through 3 roofs at this point, but the car's doing great.
He's learned. Good to hear. Hey, I hear you guys mentioned a program on your show there today, and you got quite a crowd. How many people you got out there, do you think? Huh?
We have well over 75,000 people right here.
The magic of radio, that's amazing, isn't it? Yeah,
amazing.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Well, hey, listen, thanks, guys. We'll check back with you in just a minute. Okay,
all right,
thanks. Good. Well, I can honestly tell you, 75,000 or not, that I've never been associated with a car introduction quite like this one before. You might ask, where does Corvette fit in at Chevrolet? Well, Corvette is clearly our flagship. It's our leader in developing new technology and introducing better ways to design and build cars and trucks. In a lot of ways, Corvette is the reason that we're able to provide more value in our lower-priced products. Corvette is a world leader. People who buy it expect that it will be the most advanced sports car in the world for the price. I got to tell you, the 1997 can make that claim without any caveats. Let's get rolling, guys. Let's turn the stage, and let's open up those vaults, huh? What do you say? Mark and Brian, the folks out there in LA getting excited?
Yes, sir, they are. As a matter of fact, We met a guy earlier who lost his virginity in a vet. He's in traction, so he can't talk to you right now, but
he did admit he was alone at the time. We are very excited here in Los Angeles. We can't wait.
You got there.
Yeah, you've got a whole bunch of people here waiting to see this car.
Hey, listen, we got a few people here might not believe you're really live, so let me get, somebody got a newspaper out there, like a Free Press or something? Here. Oh, here's one. Let me hold up the, this is the, you're talking about sports team. This is the sports section here. Can you read this?
Now we can, yeah. Changing of the guard.
Changing of the guard. That's
right.
We're getting a new coach. That's right. All right. I got it.
You might want to get a new team.
Hey, how about showing us what's happening out there in L.A.? You got the audience riled up and
going. Can we turn everybody?
Yeah.
80,000 now, John. 80,000 people if we could
this building. That's good.
Show the crowd.
And look at the signs. We love the Corvette. Hold up the other one. We'll work for a vet.
All right. That's good. We'll work for a vet.
So there's tons of people here, and they are looking forward to it.
We just want to see the car.
All right.
Show us the car!
Looks like they got that audience riled up and going. So, ladies and gentlemen, the moment has arrived. Let's drop the tarps and let's greet the 97 Chevrolet Corvette. Dropping the tarp! All right. Yeah. What's happening out in L.A.?
John, you may hear the booing here. The now 85,000 people are booing because they dropped the tarp and there's no car here.
John?
Oh, hold on, ladies and gentlemen. We got a situation, I guess, out there in L.A. What's going on out there? There's no car?
We are vet challenged.
No, we can see, we're looking at the monitor. We can see that you have yours. We don't have one of these people are up.
Hold tight. We'll get to the bottom. O'Neill, where are you?
Hey, the car looks great on TV.
They're screaming for it. Do you want to see the car?
I don't know what to tell them here.
Eventually, top US illusionist Franz Harari was brought in to magic the new Corvette away to LA.
I say LA because that's where she's going. She's going to be the first girl ever to take this vet cross-country from Detroit to Los Angeles. We're going to open this up, let you get inside. Bill, go for it. Right around.
What?
All right, step right inside. There we go. Hold on.
Whoa!
Right. Debbie, you want to crank him up?
Let me crank him up. Can I crank him up?
Let John crank him up. That's perfect.
Oh, no.
John, start at the
crank him up. I don't want to get cranked up. What are you doing to me? I'm not. I don't.
All right. Mark, Brian, are you there?
Ready.
All right. Hang loose in Detroit.
How you doing, Bill?
Raise your tarp. Mark, Brian in Los Angeles, raise your tarp.
All right, they're raising the tarp now.
Bring the tarp up.
It is raised.
We got it. Cool. All right, cross your fingers, folks. How are we doing over here in the prototype?
Bill's doing good.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bill O'Neill has left the building.
We're gone.
Stand by, Mark and Brian.
Yo.
Happening in Detroit. Molly, put on your seatbelt. Trust me, you're going to want to. Guys, hold on. Here we go. In Los Angeles, in Detroit, drop your tarp now. It and Molly are on their way, coast to coast, cross country, to Los Angeles. Mark and Brian.
Yes, Rons.
Drop your tarp now. Drop it!
Ladies and gentlemen, the 1997 Chevrolet Corvette.
Whoa! My God, Molly.
Well, we've had the Porsche Boxster, the first genuinely new Porsche for, what, 18 years or so. We've now got the latest generation Corvette, the first one, Bill O'Neill, in how many years?
Since 1984, so that would be 13 years, and it's the 5th generation of the car. Car started in 1953.
And we're going to be seeing this car, I gather, in the UK. This is a car that's going to be available very much for export.
Oh, yes, sir. Our plans inside Chevrolet are probably to do 20 to 25,000 units a year, but there's capacity to do beyond that, and that capacity certainly includes export to markets around the world where the car would be very popular. And I'm certain that UK, not only Western Europe and UK, are very important to that plan.
The manufacturer's recommended price for this car is something like $38,000.
And that includes freight. That's here in the States, yes.
Right. That's about, what, £23,000. Presumably if it's £23,000 in America, it'll only be £23,000 in the UK.
I don't have a clue. Well, hey, I was able to get it from here to LA. Now, don't ask me any financial questions.
The point I'm really making is that cars in the UK are a lot more expensive, even the very same cars.
Chevrolet has always stood for value. If you go back in the history of Chevrolet in this country, it was always a car that a person could afford for their family. And that value really doesn't change whether you're buying a Cavalier or a pickup truck or a Corvette. And the value equation is very simple. It's what you pay versus what you get. And we think that with this car, you not only get a redefinition of what a performance car is, but a redefinition of what a value for a performance car is.
People know what the Corvette is in the UK because, I mean, particularly the 50s versions, which particularly appeal to me, that being the kind of the time of when I was born. So a 57 Corvette is something I know all about. But I've got to say that 80s Corvettes, perhaps we're not so familiar with. We don't see many of them on the road.
Sure.
What sort of market are you competing in? What do you see as your main competitors?
Well, it's clearly the high sports market, and in the 80s and early 90s, many of the people who were in that market have gone away. People like the Nissan NSX and other cars like that. They're not there any longer. Now our marketing challenge is to go against mostly European cars like the Mercedes and the cars like the Porsche. There really isn't much challenge from other competitors in that segment of the market. In fact, Corvette gets above 40% of that segment. So I think the car and the heritage of the car, people have asked me how you're going to do versus Mercedes and Porsche. My answer is quite simple. Nobody has the panache, the heritage, the history, or the gut level want that the name Corvette has and the car Corvette has. So I'll be happy to put mine up against theirs anytime.
And in terms of styling, are you confident that this really does the job? I mean, I'm sure you'll agree that things like a 57, 58 Corvette, it just stands out in automotive history as one of the greats. Is this going to go down as one of the greats?
Well, I certainly think it is, and I think it's going to go down as one of the greats for the people who are really most important to us, and that are the true Corvette lovers, the loyalists, the enthusiasts, the people who've come here from other places and said, I have to see that car. When you can look at your colleagues here today. I mean, they're swarming to try and get in the car. The car didn't want to be revolutionary. That's against what Corvette is. The car wanted to be evolutionary, which is everything Corvette's always stood for.
What about GM in general? You're not having the best of times. This is all relative, of course, because you are still, correct me if I'm wrong, the biggest corporation in the world.
Yes.
You have the biggest market share in the US and lots of other markets. But your market share is going down slightly.
But we're also changing 15 of our products at the same time.
That was the next point I was going to say. It's more than one a month, isn't it, in 97?
Yes. In fact, in Chevrolet, there'll be a new product every 6 months until the year 2001. So, I mean, this is a situation where a company is not only remaking itself with its processes, but remaking itself with its products. Here at Chevrolet, we will have totally remade our 19 product lines between 1992 and 1997, or 1998, which is 6 years. That's unheard of in this business. So you are going to suffer somewhat in market share when you don't have the capability to ramp up that rapidly. We're going to get there. We'll be just fine.
There's so many new concept vehicles at the Detroit show, I can't believe it. And this is a really interesting one. I'm not quite sure what market they're going for. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know, I'm going to try and find somebody and have a chat to them about it.
I don't want to challenge your professional judgment, but this is not a concept car. This is a photostat machine, you silly cow.
Oops. Now, I may have got that one wrong, but this is something really interesting. You know, cars are just getting smaller and smaller. Just when you think that the Ford car is the smallest car that you can see.
Sorry, love. This is a trailer for a Plymouth Prowler.
Can't do anything right.
It's an easy mistake to make, Ginny, I'm sure. It is actually a very disconcerting sensation to be in the States where you're surrounded by cars you only half recognise. I mean, you pride yourself on being able to recognise all the models in the street in the UK, and then you have difficulty in recognising an American Escort. It's like being in a curious parallel universe where not everything is quite what it seems. Of course, more and more cars are being developed for world markets. In fact, Europe's own Vauxhall Omega is now on sale in America as the Cadillac Catera. Yes, the badge of another American dream, Cadillac, on the front of a vehicle made in Germany. An extraordinary situation which would have been unheard of, say, 10 years ago. OK, we'll take a break now and then news from the Ford camp at the Detroit show. Welcome back. We started filming in Detroit before the actual press days and experienced huge jams around the Cobo Centre where the show was being set up. Not only were hundreds of shiny new cars being delivered, but the roads were full of enormous trucks delivering stages, walls and even trees for the elaborate stands. Ginny Buckley explains further.
They're not joking when they say this is the Ford Global Village, but until yesterday it was actually an ice hockey arena. But no, they've filled it with soil, with grass, with plants and trees, a waterfall, a house, and would you believe it, even the sound effects of birds singing. Ford had invited the world's media to an American-style power breakfast at the ridiculously early hour of 7 a.m. to give everyone a chance to take a look at their new products. You may think that you've seen some fabulous unveilings at Birmingham and at the NEC, but believe me, you ain't seen anything until you've seen one Detroit style. We're here at the Ford Breakfast, and no, it's not a gathering of Hollywood stars. You'd think so with all the cameras and action. It's actually the unveiling of their two latest concepts, a new coupe and a 4x4 to follow on from the Explorer. And at the Lincoln Navigator conference, which follows, I'm led to believe that the car's going to drive through the waterfall over there. The Americans truly have an obsession with 4x4s, or sports utility vehicles as they like to call them.
If you thought of the sport utility 10 or 15 years ago, that was a truck. It had all the properties of trucks. Today, when we talk about a sport utility vehicle, it is, in every sense of the word, a luxury vehicle that has a wider degree of flexibility in how we use it.
Close to 2 feet longer than a Range Rover, the Navigator is based on Ford's 1996 US Truck of the Year. With its 5.4-litre V8 engine, it's surely a gas guzzler, albeit one with quite a few touches of luxury. The Ford Explorer is the biggest selling sports utility vehicle in the world, and it's about to hit the streets of Britain in March. Now, this is a hint of what you may see in the next millennium. This is the Ford Tremor, unveiled for the first time this morning, and who knows, we might be seeing it on British roads very soon. While the Tremor is only a concept at this stage, it's been engineered as a fully drivable prototype. But of course, as with all concept vehicles, Ford want to check out public opinion before they'll commit themselves to a production version. I'd actually quite like to take a look at the car, because after all, that is what we're all here for. But it's about 7 a.m. in the morning, and I ain't quite ready to tackle my way through that lot of people. So what was Mike Rutherford doing whilst all this was going on? Lazing in bed? Taking a leisurely breakfast by the pool in the hotel? No, unfortunately he wasn't. He was actually on with his search for the big three. Interviews with chairmen of the board, that is. And he scored, finding Alex Trotman, the boss of Ford. And he had a few questions for him.
I think it's fair to say that we're honoured to be speaking to Alex Trotman from Ford at this moment. And appropriately enough, Alex, we're standing next to a car that's just about to arrive in the UK. Very much an American-built car, the Explorer.
Yeah, sport utility vehicle, we call it.
And,
SUV. Here, SUV, right. And I wish we'd introduced it earlier in Britain, as a matter of fact, but better late than never. It's now in right-hand drive, and it's just about to be, or has been, just recently launched in the UK. And I think it'll do very well there.
There is an enormous price disparity between American products and UK products. That means that you can buy this car, this very car from the same American factory, for a lot less in the US than you can in the UK. Now, I think there's a lot of misinformation goes out about this subject, but the fact is the American punter pays more than the UK punter. Why is that?
You mean the other way around? The UK punter pays more than the US punter.
You're absolutely right. How could I make a mistake like that? But I did.
Well, it's easy to explain on a vehicle like this because this is made in the United States and it's shipped a long way and it pays import duty into the European community. But I think a more germane question is, why would an Escort cost more in Europe for the customer than it does a very similar, almost identical product in the United States, which it does? Its cost of production, costs are higher in Europe than they are here. And taxation. It's essentially those two things. Efficiency of the whole infrastructure of manufacturing automobiles and the taxation policies of the governments in Europe.
It's not the case that Ford is just simply making more profit per unit on that European car than they are on the American car.
There's some of that in it too. It's what the market will bear. We haven't been doing exceptionally well, to put it mildly, on a profit front for the last year or two in Europe. It's very competitive. But yes, we have other factors that influence the answer to that question. We have a fuel economy law in the United States, which in effect mandates that manufacturers sell, big manufacturers like Ford anyway, sell a very significant volume of small vehicles, whether they like it or not. To meet the law, they have to do that. So that has an impact on pricing. But the pricing differential applies also for vehicles that are, say, 2 or 3 liter sized vehicles. There is a disparity across the ocean, with generally the prices being higher in Europe than they are in America.
America has a reputation for producing some amazing looking trucks, and this is the 1997 Truck of the Year. It's Ford's F-150. Now, it's not only the Truck of the Year, it's also the best-selling vehicle, and that's car or truck, in the whole of the States. In 1997, 800,000 of these were sold. What's even more astonishing is that it's been #1 for 15 years.
Sadly, downsizing is a popular and all too common word in the American auto industry these days. Everybody's thinking small about reducing the size of cars, but thankfully one company, Hummer, is thinking the complete opposite. Now, this is what you call a big car. Let me tell you, if you park one of these on the side of a road, on a traditionally sized parking bay, or on a meter or something, you're going to be taking up half the road, because this is the widest car probably in the world. It's built by Hummer of America. If it looks familiar, this vehicle, it's because it was one of the vehicles used in the Gulf War. And it's also famous because our old mate Mike Tyson drives one. And it's that kind of car for that kind of guy. 6.5 litre engines. I mean, these are monsters. 50, 60,000 bucks. That's around 40,000 pounds. And if you want macho, if you want big, they don't come any better than this.
That is one incredible vehicle. Well, if you're the sort of guy who carefully washes and polishes your wheels every Sunday, you're probably cringing at the abuse those Hummer owners were giving their vehicles, but at least it proved what kind of treatment they could take. Of course, there aren't many places in this country you could thrash your Hummer around, so to speak. So maybe they won't be that big a hit over here. We'll have to wait and see. We'll have more news from the Detroit Auto Show after this break. Hello again, you're watching Four Wheels Good on the Granada Men and Motors channel. Chrysler is the smallest of the big three American car manufacturers, but also the most profitable. Mike Rutherford managed to track down the legendary Bob Lutz, president of Chrysler Motors.
I think it's fair to say this is an honour to be talking to Bob Lutz of Chrysler. Well, hang on, Bob, I'm just been making a few notes here. You've just been named Corporation of the Year.
Right.
You've got this incredible sales year in terms of products, in terms of sales, in terms of profitability. You've stolen the Detroit show. You've got all these concept cars. Where did it all go wrong?
Well, we sort of find that the harder we work, the luckier we get. But It's interesting you would ask where did it go wrong. The thing is to prevent it from going wrong, and the greatest danger that we face right now is basking in the glory of all the accolades that we're getting and sort of taking off our packs or resting on the oars for a while. And in this business, you just can't do that. If you're momentarily a little bit ahead of your competitors, that just means that you're now in the vulnerable spot where they all shoot at you. So Bob Eaton and I and the rest of the team are very conscious of the fact that now we have to work even harder to continue to reduce costs and improve quality and improve our timing, and above all not lose the creative edge and the sense of excitement and the sense of daring, which is as you know as well as I do, it's very, very difficult in a large company to get that corporate willingness to take risk and not be afraid of making a mistake and not going for the safe solution. That's a hard culture to inculcate in a large automobile company, and we've got it right now, and that's one of the key things we've got to struggle not to lose.
There's a big difference, I can tell, from talking to you guys and the other guys in the industry, with the greatest respect to some of the other senior managers.
Excellent competitors.
You never rubbish the opposition. You will never do that, will you? But
try not to.
But you know, they could be in the baked bean business. They could be in the computer business. They're not car guys. And it seems to me that everybody at Chrysler, from the top to the bottom, from the guy that delivers the mail to people at your level, they're into cars, and that comes through.
Well, we celebrate that. We categorically reject the notion of the interchangeable manager as, tell me what business I'm running this week and I'll go down through the numbers and I'll tell you how to run it. I'm a firm believer in eating in restaurants that are not owned by a bank and being run as a cash cow, but I firmly believe in eating at restaurants where the owner cooks personally and is passionate about food.
Right. And if we look at, for example, Tom Gale, your chief designer, here's a guy that designs cars for one of the largest car corporations and goes home at weekends and plays with cars in the garage.
Well, building his own scratch-built street rod, sort of, a la Boyd Coddington. I think if you've seen pictures of the rod he's putting together, it's going to be better than any custom-built street rod ever produced, and he just does that in his spare time.
Yeah, people are aware of Chrysler in the UK, but they're not too sure about the product, because it seems to us that we get a lot of product late in the day. There are some cars not available in left-hand drive. What's your message to the people of Europe, and in particular the people of Britain in that right-hand drive market?
This first generation were all vehicles that were designed purely as left-hand drive vehicles, and then we had to double back laboriously and re-engineer the whole car to get it into right-hand drive. Whereas in all our future generation of cars, we will be doing basically what the Europeans and Japanese have always done, which is to design the car simultaneously for right-hand drive and left-hand drive. And you see that in the new Wrangler, which has a bilaterally symmetrical instrument panel with the center stack containing all of the heater and ventilation and radio controls, and then you can simply swap the airbag with the instrument module. And the new Cherokee that we're showing for the first time here is really an ambidextrous vehicle. The next generation Neon, which is rapidly approaching production status, is fully right-hand drive engineered from the word go. So yes, we'll see more right-hand drive vehicles and with less of a delay from left-hand drive startup.
If you've been watching Four Wheels Good in recent weeks, you'll realise that I've had quite an experience with the Chrysler Viper, one that I wanted to repeat. So I went out last night and got the Chrysler PR men extremely drunk. And Peter and Tom promised me faithfully that today at the show there would be a Chrysler Viper for me to drive. Now they weren't exactly lying, but what they didn't say was that it was actually a virtual reality game. Still, I suppose virtual reality is better than nothing, so here goes. No matter what they said, I just couldn't agree. It's definitely not a patch on the real thing.
Well, another old friend of mine who I bump into at motor shows around the world is Jim Park from Hyundai. But Jim, you're not based at the Hyundai headquarters in Seoul. You're at the LA office. Now, what's the significance of Los Angeles and Hyundai?
Sure, I'm from Los Angeles. That's where our national headquarters is located, and that is our sales and marketing arm, also with our service operations.
But you also style cars. You have a design studio in LA as well, don't you?
That's correct. We have a full staff, design staff, about 15 people.
Now, this is your baby, really. We're aware of the Hyundai Coupe in the UK, the tin top. This is the convertible version, which has come not out of Korea, but out of LA. What are the chances of it going on sale, into production and on sale?
Actually, at this time, we have no plans for production. However, we've studied the convertible market. Timing is not determined.
Now, I know you've got to be careful what you say, but you guys are always saying we haven't made a decision yet. Everything, it seems to me, is right for this thing to go on into production and on sale. You've got the coupe version. This looks great. Everything fits, doesn't it? I mean, what would be the hold-up? What would be the objections to putting it into production?
Well, what you see here is a production model. I'm really excited because we had a coordinated effort. This was a U.S. proposal. Our design studio, our technical center here in the U.S., located in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and in California, all worked together with the product planners and the marketing arm to produce this concept. However, we take it one step further and made this into a prototype because it's a fully engineered vehicle. Not only do you have the lid off this car, but we have the structural reinforcements and all the engineering done.
If you've got any doubts about Korean cars, throw all those prejudices out of the window and take a look at this, because if this doesn't say something about where the Korean motor industry is going, with a little help from Jim Park in LA, of course, I don't know what does. This is the convertible version of the Hyundai Coupe, and this is a car that should be in production.
Yes, a fine-looking car indeed. Well, that's all we have time for this week, I'm afraid. Please join us next week for more stories and personalities from the North American International Auto Show in Detroit, and find out if Mike can complete his audiences with the holy trinity of car bosses. John F. Smith Jr., chairman of the biggest corporation in the world, General Motors, is the only one left on his list now. And by the way, if you've only just caught the end of this programme, why not check your satellite and cable listings magazine for details of repeats later on in the week. For now though, take care. We'll see you soon.